Hi, I'm Nick, and this is Human Limits, a podcast about what we are truly capable of, about the limitations we hit, and whether those limitations are real or something we can move past. Today we have Daphne here. Daphne Christofides, a couple and sex therapist from Barcelona. And the topic that's very personal to me, super interesting. I was meaning to talk about it with you or with some other professional in the field. Couples and limits. Because there's something that they don't tell you about getting into a relationship. Yeah.
Right.
At the moment you start growing, evolving, whatever you're going to call it, your partner is not necessarily going to support this growth. They're not necessarily going to cheer for you. And it's not because they're bad or there's a poor intention behind it. It's something automatic. So I wanted to discuss with you what kind of limitations we put upon each other about this sacred equilibrium
Right.
that we play around in the game of relationship. Yeah?
You use the right word there. I was going to say that when we get in a relationship, it's a very subtle thing, and it's not something that we consciously think about before or even when we're in it. But there's that emotional equilibrium that's sort of built between in a couple. And when, say, one starts to grow more, the other, depending on their resources, depending on their life experiences and their beliefs and, all of that, it's a very subjective thing, but it can feel a bit like a threat. But normally it doesn't come from a malicious place. It's more an anxiety of some sort, because it's an anxiety of, if you're changing, what does that mean? What does that mean for me? Who am I? And are we, the relationship, are we safe? Right? So beneath this is really a fear of losing connection. And again, a fear of maybe being alone. So panic starts to come in, right? And some people deal with it in better ways and some people deal with it in not so great ways, depending also on what resources and they have, right? And what they know.
But good to know that there is a good way to deal with it. So
right.
There's a recipe.
Yeah. Again, it's not one specific one, but it's, say, towards the direction of communicating, being supportive, but also talking about what you're going through and what your experience is when your partner is thriving so much and you don't. Right?
So, okay, say I'm watching my partner grow, evolve. It scares me. My partner is becoming something else. Yeah, I've married or I've chosen to be with one person, and I'm watching them evolve into something new. Yeah, now they're spending way more time with books and certain kind of people than before, and I feel left behind.
Right.
In an ideal world, I don't freak out, I don't point fingers, but imagine I'm a good communicator. What are my steps here? What is the right language to choose here in order to properly communicate how I feel or what do I expect?
Right. Great question. So I think, first of all, it starts with tolerating instability or tolerating change, right? Because it's not how you entered the relationship, it's changing. So I think there's a big part of starting there, right? And then I would say also just having a general concept of seeing change as the relationship evolving and not necessarily being a threat to the relationship. This, of course, depends on both members of the couple. or if there's more people involved. Because it depends how you go about it, and if you're respectful about it, or if the person that's growing is just growing in a more independent way and also kind of leaving the other one behind, right? Or it might be that they're growing and they still feel on the same level as their partner, but their partner doesn't deal with it too well, so then they start maybe withdrawing emotionally or feeling all sorts of things. So number one key here is communication, right? We always come back to that. These can be hard conversations for sure. So I can understand how a lot of people avoid them, or they feel too scared to get into them. You never know what can happen, and often there's that fear of rejection behind it, or fear of, will you leave me if I say this, you know? But if there's respect in the relationship, and if communication is done in a better way, for example, it means, so some ways to sort of support a better communication is, first of all, asking the other person when you want to have a more serious conversation or a deeper conversation, asking if it's a good time when you feel like you want to say something, right? Because you've been ruminating, you've been thinking about it in your mind, but the other person doesn't know. And then all of a sudden, when it feels good for you, you spring this huge topic on the other person. And if it's not a good time for them, it can be a kind of an equation for disaster, because if the other one doesn't expect it and gets reactive, then this conversation goes down a path that maybe could have been avoided, right?
Yeah, but if someone is asking me if it's a good time to ask you a question or have a conversation, I can't imagine myself saying, oh yeah, I'm so ready, you know?
No, but then you can't say, okay, this isn't a good time, but let's decide when. So if it's not a good time, you have to say, you have to agree when is a good time, so that we can also...
We have time, we have room, we have resources for to...
And maybe it's because you want to also mentally prepare about this huge topic, and the other person can tell you a little bit what it's about if they want, and if you want. So you can be a bit more prepared. But starting the conversation where both people feel like it's a good time is a huge thing. It creates a path that's more desirable for this conversation.
But you let the partner know about the topic at hand, right? You say,
if you want to.
Well, otherwise it's gonna, I want to have a tough conversation with you.
No, you might
know,
not
when you're
say
ready.
tough, but you might say, hey, I want to talk about something that's important to me. Is it a good time? If not, can we agree when is a good time?
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes saying what the topic is could even create more anxiety. So it's really a subjective thing.
I see.
Right?
Yeah.
I know that just hearing this, creates some anxiety, because you never know. It's the uncertainty.
Yeah.
The uncertainty of not knowing what
we
this is
tend to
going to.
expect the worst, right?
We do. The brain does this. The brain is, but the thing is that it's a protective function, because it thinks about all the worst possible scenarios, and it starts sort of preparing ourselves so that if it happens,
survival mode activated.
Right, you're a little bit more prepared.
Yeah.
And our imagination has no limits. There's no limits there. We can say that,
no limits.
right? And it's very easy to go very far and imagine the worst, and then it's normally not as bad.
So I would say know your partner. If you know if you give them more anxiety than help, maybe then you can take this responsibility and decide, okay, right now we just had dinner, we have like half an hour to dedicate to something undisturbed, so maybe this is the right time.
That's another part of it. If it's an important conversation, ideally not have a time limit. Or allow the time limit to be quite big, like a few hours. It might not mean that you'll need them. It doesn't mean that you'll need them.
To get over.
But you're not in a rush. You won't be interrupted, right? Or you're not feeling anxious that you need to be somewhere, so you're kind of trying to speed it up. Yeah. There was another thing you said there, but it's kind of left my mind.
Well, maybe it wasn't that important.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me rewind. Taking responsibility for choosing time for your partner, or knowing your partner if it's gonna give them more anxiety this time ahead.
No, that wasn't it.
No.
But you were saying, say, after dinner. Choosing the time wisely. So I would stay clear of having such conversations before bed.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're very emotionally charged. And then if you go to bed with all these emotions, you're most likely to not sleep well. You might have nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't sleep well, the next day you're not feeling too great. And then it adds another layer of unpleasant emotions that maybe could have been avoided also. So yeah, choosing the time in a way that works for both, right? Then another thing about how you communicated is using I statements. So focusing a lot on what I am feeling, not what you are doing or not doing. Because when you talk about what the other person is doing or not doing, it sounds very accusatory.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're talking about your feelings, there's no, you can't go against that. Everyone's feelings are valid. If I'm feeling angry or if I'm feeling sad, you can't tell me not to feel that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's very different to say, you make me feel angry.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with that because I don't think we are responsible for someone else's emotions, right? But the situation can create that. And the fact that I'm feeling this way is important. Both people's emotions are always important, right?
Yeah.
So it's a really great way to talk about, say, the limitations we were talking about earlier, instead of, say, asking the other person to do something or to stop doing something or to stop growing, right? You're just talking about how maybe it feels intimidating or maybe it makes you feel more insignificant or smaller. And there, through a conversation like that, you can see, is that something that's mine from my story and it's being triggered right now or it's being exacerbated, or is it also the other person's behavior, right?
Yeah.
But speaking from this point of view is from, say, my feelings and how the situation is making me feel. It's a difficult conversation, but it makes it much lighter, and it's much easier for the other person to feel compassion and empathy for your emotions. Like, it doesn't feel nice to feel that way.
Yeah, you're removing the layer of accusations.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And it's also sound quite universal. We're talking about growing and limiting each other, but this is a universally good approach to having any serious, important conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Good. And since we're on the conversation topic, communication topic, the language. I believe language is a very important tool. It's a very powerful tool.
Yeah, I agree.
Sometimes reading a book doesn't answer the questions, but give me more words to use to describe what I feel.
Yes.
And to understand myself better going through the life experiences. And also communicating with my partner about what I feel.
Yeah.
What do I expect, right? What are some terms? What's the language you would suggest in this regard?
Okay. So going back to the I statements we were talking about before, that's a good place to start.
This is where I pick it up.
Right. I would definitely say staying clear of any insults. Just prioritizing speaking kindly. You can say the same thing, but in a more mean way or in a more kind way. So I think the kind way is definitely received better, and it works to your benefit because if the other person receives it well, they respond better also. Other, say, more universal ways of using the language. It's hard to speak from a more universal point of view. I think with every language, there's differences in how you say these things. I also have to say because of my studies and my training, there's that, say, more therapeutic kind of language,
Yeah.
which I know can be frustrating for some people because we're not used to it. And it can feel, if you're not used to it, it can feel pretentious or it can feel fake.
Yeah.
And I get that. But
self-imposing.
Yeah.
It's actually my next question. Should both partners, should every couple go through some basic therapy to pick up this language so that it doesn't sound foreign, so that it, so to be on the same page and just to shorten all the conversations instead of looking for that word we just have the language talk.
I would go even further back from that, not for the couples to have the therapy, which also would be great, but I would take it much earlier to just education in school. Honestly, I feel like we should have, and we do, it's starting to be much more present than it used to be before, but it's having education on how to communicate and also how to talk about your feelings, putting words to our feelings. We're very used to saying, I feel good or I feel bad, and that can mean a million different things. This is something I always tell all my clients, that we need to find more words, right, to see what this means.
Do you use the emotion?
I do. I was about to say that I use the emotion wheel, which is basically an amazing tool to help us put words to our emotions. And again, because we're not taught how to do that. So by looking at this prop that gives you all these different words, it helps you say, okay, it doesn't just make me feel good. It makes me feel free, or it makes me feel appreciated or valued. All these words give a much deeper meaning than just I feel good, right? Or the opposite.
I think the huge benefit of the emotion wheel is it lets you realize that you might feel 7, 10 things at the same time. Yeah. And you're expected to handle it gracefully.
And to add to that, an even more complex layer is because humans are complex beings. We can feel contradicting things at the same time. And this is because we have different parts of us. A lot of different parts of us that are present in a specific moment, and they come from different experiences. So those different parts have different emotions, and sometimes they can be completely the opposite, right? So it's just being aware that it's normal, this is how it is, and then also maybe choosing which part we want to have more present, or tending to the part that isn't feeling too great, and why, right?
I think it's super important, and it helped me personally a lot to realize I'm allowed to be contradicted in terms of what I feel. I'm not supposed to fit all I feel in a single term. Even if I would, it wouldn't be the full picture. Talking to your partner, naming all the emotions that are involved in this certain topic, it helps a lot. It takes a lot of pressure away. It also helps you see your partner differently. He's not just jealous.
I was about to give that example. So you can maybe be proud and admire your partner for their successes, but there is maybe a part of you that also feels jealous and intimidated by it. And it's totally normal to have both, right? Here, it depends a lot on, you can know you have both feelings, but it's the path that you choose to go down on. So if you stay with the jealousy part, and then you become bitter and resentful, which means that maybe you're critical of your partner's success, or you withdraw emotionally from them, or create a scene before important events, or all of a sudden you need more from your partner. But all of this comes from a place of fear, right? It's the fear of feeling less than, or the fear of losing them, or the fear of being alone. Whereas if you choose the path that feels proud of them, admires them, and supports their success, in my opinion, I always say this, that for me, the opposite of love is fear, and the other way around. So this part for me is the more loving part. And in my opinion, we have a lot of fears always, and love and fear go hand in hand. For example, as the moment that you feel that you love someone, instantly there's the fear of losing them. And the more you love them, the bigger the fear of losing them. So in life, I feel that we can make certain decisions that are based on fear, which means that we are avoiding something from happening. So we're behaving and making decisions from a place of fear to avoid getting somewhere we don't want to go. And if you choose love, you're going towards something that you want to happen. So it's manifesting it also. Energetically, I think it has a big difference.
So it's important to ask yourself, the choice I'm making now, where it comes from. What's at the bottom of it? Fear or love.
And it's not to take away from the importance, say, of your jealousy feelings. You know, we also need to validate those. But it depends who you allow to be the driver, basically. We can imagine it as, our different parts or our different emotions as if it was like a minivan. And there's a driver, there's the co-pilot, and then there's these extra seats at the back, right? And we can have a lot of them present. So it depends who we choose to be the driver and the co-pilot that maybe are the leading emotions. And ideally here, say, if we were to choose love or admiration or support as the driver and the co-pilot, let's say, jealousy can still be in the car, but it's in the back seat. It's still present though.
It's present, but it's not driving the van.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
What I experienced a lot in the relationship, the equilibrium and how it's automatically being maintained in the relationship. On super simple example, the budgeting. If I see my spouse spending too much money, I will start saving more. If I see, okay, they're more careful with budgeting now, I will feel a bit more freedom somehow naturally, and maybe I will buy something that I wasn't supposed to. So there is this invisible equilibrium happening, and it happens on every level. It's great to notice these things. But what I'm leaning towards to talking about limiting your partner, can it be a product of this equilibrium? Say I see my partner not evolving at all in certain area. Would it make me think about it and develop certain set of skills, or the opposite? Can the growth of my partner hold me back, to keep again this equilibrium, so that if something grows, something should either maintain where it is or even shrink a bit? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. See, this is the bigger concept of what you're describing now, is basically that equilibrium that you're talking about. So in relationships, and especially long-term relationships, they end up sort of creating a new identity for them, right? Within the couple. And we also develop our identity depending on the partner that we chose, right? So this is where certain dynamics, patterns, or routines start to be created. Some of them are useful and they work for us. Some of them maybe start feeling useful and then they're not anymore. Or some of them are dynamics that are not working because they're based more on our fears. And then each one reinforces the other, right? I lost what I was going to say.
You were climbing the mountain. And
what was your question?
No, it's just like, it's a cumbersome way to ask if sometimes we don't evolve or grow exactly because our partner does, if just to maintain this invisible equilibrium. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. But if you're then blocking yourself and that's self-deprecating in a way, that's not really working either, right? So the equilibrium, ideally, we want it to be where both partners feel satisfied.
Yeah.
And you're right in that it's not always constant, the equilibrium. Like there's moments where it's more on this side than on this side in order to try and maintain it. So again, we come back to communicating what we're going through, but then also it's about self-reflection, right? So if you are limiting yourself in order to give more freedom to your partner, does that work for you? What's it like? What's that experience for you? Because at the end of the day, maybe it's not fair for you to be doing this if it's limiting yourself too much. And also it's important to know that if your partner didn't ask you to, it's not something to blame on them or to accuse them, right? And this is also a common thing that happens, that we might end up having certain behaviors and we blame it on the other person because it's so much easier than to take the responsibility. But it is different. It is important to know whether our partner actually asked us to do this or not, or whether it's something that came from us. We might not even know where it came from, which would be good to find out. Yeah, and work on that.
It's a challenging thing for the both partners in the same relationship to grow big careers, to climb the career ladder in parallel, because it requires a lot in terms of time, resources.
Right.
So what happens quite often, one would choose the career path where the other will develop in some other direction. Say spirituality, for example.
Okay.
Yeah. And we end up having two people who met somewhere, but then went two separate paths. Two absolutely valid, beautiful, wholesome paths, but they're just getting further and further away from each other. Isn't it like a big part of why the couples end up in your cabinet?
Yes, that can happen for sure. And what I would say in this case is that realizing that maybe, first of all, it's deciding whether the path that you chose that has made you sort of grow apart, whether it's a path that you like and you want to continue being on, and it's important to you. Because this means that you're sort of prioritizing whether this path is better for you, but it means that you will lose your relationship, or whether maybe you don't like how you deviated from your path and from a different path, and you don't want to lose the relationship, so you decide to make changes in order to prioritize a relationship. Both options are valid. There's no right and wrong. It's a very subjective thing. So it's something that can happen, and it can be sad because, and then you have to grieve losing the relationship, because at the end of the day, you know, life brought you down a different path, and you want to continue on that path, and it's not wrong to do that either, but it can be sad, and it's a big loss. So being aware of that and kind of putting it to the forefront, it can have sometimes an amicable yet sad or hurtful ending, but it ends in a better way than if, say, people start attacking each other or become bitter.
Yeah. I think what doesn't help here is that we meet a lot of other people on these paths, our mainstream paths. The people that understand us way better than our partner now, because I'm here and my partner is over there. Everything I think about, I learn about, it's happening here in this bubble or on this path. And now I'm surrounded by people who understand me, but I don't have this understanding at home anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's only focused on career, because it might be that someone is growing in their career, and it also means that they're changing as a person. But we can still accompany that journey of theirs, even if we don't agree with it sometimes. We can still accompany it. Or maybe we agree that, maybe this is more separate, this is more yours. I don't want to be involved in it, but I do support you.
Yeah.
So if this is the approach, it means that you're growing together. But if the other person doesn't really like that path that you're going on, and then it becomes a bigger thing, or if that path then affects, the attention that you give to your partner or the time that you spend together, then it can become a problem. Yeah.
If your interests align one sphere and mine completely other, and we just can't meet anywhere anymore, apart from sharing a ride. But then, is it in your practice to suggest to build a new path, something that you would both enjoy? Yeah.
If it feels like they both want to,
Yeah.
and there is a desire to try or to see what that would be like, and experiment, just see if there's the desire to spend time with each other, and doing something new, then I would definitely suggest it and encourage it. If it feels like they're so far apart now and they don't really want to find that common ground to make it work, then I would make that explicit. I would reflect that back to them, that this is what I'm seeing, or this is what I'm feeling from them. Confirm with them if this is what it's like. And then if that's what it's like, then I would put the topic of separation on the table, and then see what that feels like for them. And often just mentioning the topic of separation when they've not necessarily discussed it that much, especially if they've not even considered it so far, that can also be a powerful tool, because it can be shocking.
Yeah.
And it's seeing that you can see your own response to that concept of, say, I bring it up and they feel, oh my God, no, I don't want to lose this person. I know that it's not going well, but we need to do something, right? Or it might feel like relief, because maybe that's what you're most needing right now, and it's kind of reached its end goal, at least for now. So yeah, it's important to see what comes up for us when we think about these things.
Yeah, it's like when the last resort kind of thinking actually can be a solution, or the first step towards the solution. Yeah.
Yes.
Separation
But
is
it depends. So when you said that, I'm thinking about a lot of the couples that maybe wait until it's the last resort in order to go to therapy, which it's still better to go than to not go if it's going to end really badly, or if maybe you're just wanting to give it another chance. But it's important to know at what point you're going to therapy, right? And that therapy isn't a miracle. You're still meant to do the work. And it's hard work often. So what can happen is that if you're already exhausted from having spent so much time in it not going well, and you then go to do therapy, maybe you don't have the energy anymore to do it. And it can be that therapy shows you that you don't want to. You might see it through that. Or it might show you that at the end of the day, actually, I feel more relieved by not continuing. Or it might be a moment where, okay, you realize that even though it's been a long time, you get to put the work, one final time or one final sort of push, and then see what happens.
Yeah.
But it's knowing a little bit where you're at, and when you, in this case, go to therapy, or when you're looking for a different approach or a solution, how you get into it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Therapy, the couples therapy, I would say used to have a bad reputation. It was the last resort thing. I was just about to say happy couples don't go to therapy, but I just realized I know quite a few couples who do it just like as a maintenance of their relationship.
Right.
Do you have
I
clients?
do. And I want to encourage this also in that, but even if, so you said happy couples, right? Because it can be that you're a happy couple but still have your issues. It doesn't mean that being a happy couple or a couple that fights, that there are no good moments. There's ideally, there can be a bit of both, right? It's just that some areas might be more difficult. So if you still have those moments where things do go well in some areas of your life, it's better to go to therapy then, because these parts of your relationship can be used as resources to help with the parts that are more difficult and challenging.
It should be super powerful when you have working relationship with good communication.
Yeah.
And I just can imagine how powerful therapy can be.
Right, exactly. And
because you see mostly the clients who don't talk to each other, who can't raise any sensitive topic.
Yeah.
And you have to try them to talk, to start communicating.
Yeah.
But then you also have couples who are through the basics, done with the basics, and they can just actually solve the problems.
Right. When they know how to communicate better and they're still, it comes from a place of wanting to work on it rather than, say, attacking each other. The approach can just go so much more smoothly and faster, right? Because it's having those difficult conversations, but with a super great base of speaking kindly and respectfully, and or having a difficult conversation and wanting to get to a resolution of some sort, even if it's not a final conclusion. But say, or having dynamics like after an argument, maybe giving a hug, where it means that maybe you haven't resolved the issue and maybe you're still having some emotions that you need to tend to, but it's also reminding each other that I still love you, and you give some a physical touch also and affection, which makes the nervous system feel safe, right? So it's also easier to then get back into this conversation again next time, because you know that even if it's a difficult conversation, it's safe, or you're safe in your relationship. Yeah.
What also helps is approach of assuming the best. I picked it up from one of the companies I worked for.
Okay.
We held most of the work asynchronously, just by communicating in chats.
Yeah.
And you know how reading a message from someone can end up in a complete misunderstanding.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And so that company, there was a rule. Every time you receive a message from a colleague, assume they're the best intentions. Don't try to find criticism. Don't try to read it as if they are freaking out. Assume the best. And I took it and copy-pasted it into the relationship. So every time I get the text, or my wife is trying to raise a topic that seems accusative or something, again, I remind myself, let's try assume the best, because in the most cases, it is the good intention, if not always. So it's about the mindset, setting up the welcoming mindset that should help us go through the communication traps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really support that. I think it's a lot easier said than done.
Absolutely.
So I will be honest about this. And often it can come from a place, again, of fear, because if we read a message or a behavior in a certain way, it might trigger something from our past normally that either we're conscious about it, but often we're not even conscious of it. And that fear of abandonment maybe comes up, or that fear of rejection comes up. So there's panic. It's that, for example, a common fear is the fear of being abandoned, let's say. So our tolerance can be very small. You feel the slightest bit of something feeling off with your partner, and then instantly you're feeling, oh my God, are they angry at me? Will they leave me? What's going on? Did I do something? So if we get into that mindset, which is easy to get into,
So natural.
then we start seeing things from that mindset. Then we start confirming that mindset with, oh, you see, they didn't say goodnight, or they didn't say I love you back, or they didn't tell me, I don't know, what they had for lunch today. We interpret everything, not everything, but a lot of things in order to support that fear that we have, right? And catching yourself do this and being aware of it, even though it's really challenging, but it's definitely possible to at least, I would even say, it doesn't even have to be that you try to eliminate this way of seeing it, but I want to add another one. You can add another way, another point of view, or another way of seeing it to the bigger picture. So you're aware that a part of you is panicky and afraid that they're angry at you, and there's very little tolerance of that. And then there can be another part of you that can say, okay, maybe I'm reading into this. They probably just had a bad day, or they're in their head, or they didn't even notice that I said hello and they didn't say hello back, giving that benefit of the doubt, and trying to also find not arguments, but ways to confirm this point of view also. And this is speaking only if this is only in your head. If you make it explicit, then you're also giving the partner the opportunity to tell you. You could say, hey, I'm sensing that maybe you're a bit upset.
Yeah.
Is that how it is? Is it right? And they could say, well, actually, you know what? I am. And this is because something you said yesterday, and you can start a conversation. Or they could say, no, not at all. Why did you think that? Or I'm just in my head. So, you have that, you give them the opportunity to tell you, and for you not to have to assume and, get caught into that spiral.
Yeah.
That it can go deep and it's hard to get out sometimes.
We generally look at limiting our partner as a negative thing. We are expected to support, we're engaged to always be there for your partner, wherever path they choose. But do you think there are cases when you are allowed to put your foot down and ask them maybe not to take that next promotion, or not to spend every Sunday out of the house pursuing some certain...
Right.
Yeah.
Before telling them what to do, I would bring it back to talking about how you feel about it, the I statements again, but also to share maybe an opinion. You're their partner. You can see the picture also from the outside. So it might be that them going up the ladder in their career and getting that promotion and, feeling more successful or having more money can feel great. But it might also mean that they're very, very stressed all the time. It might mean that it's taking a toll on their mental health, on their physical health. It might mean that they are sort of abandoning or leaving their family to the side a little bit, and that, these equilibriums are not going so great.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's about limiting them, but maybe reflecting back what you're seeing and what you feel. So you could say, hey, I feel like if you take this promotion, I'm afraid that this could mean that we don't see you anymore. I'm afraid that you're going to have more panic attacks every time. I'm worried about your health, and I also miss you. I want to have more time with you. So if you bring it from this point of view, you're not telling them what to do or what not to do, because people tend to react to that. They get responsive, as in, you're not going to tell me what I'm going to do or not do. Or it feels limiting to say that to them, so they might even do it out of spite, or to show that they can, or because maybe it was a dream of theirs for forever, and how could they not get to that place? So I would suggest sort of doing it from a place of accompanying their path and giving your opinion of what you're seeing and feeling, and let them decide at the end of the day.
How do you know when the limit is the partnership itself?
Good question. I would say when you feel like you need to make yourself small in order to continue being in the relationship, that says a lot, right? When you consistently need to abandon some of your own beliefs or dreams or ways of being, feeling afraid to be yourself, feeling afraid to say certain things, or feeling afraid to share your successes. If you feel like when you do, your partner maybe reacts in a, say, punishing way or critical way, I would say these are definitely signs that the relationship isn't really working out. Because the relationship, at the end of the day, a healthy relationship, it doesn't just offer love. It offers space. It's space to change, space to fail, space to evolve.
Before we go, I wanted to ask you for a book recommendation, if you wish.
So for couples in general, I would just suggest two authors that have different approaches, so it can maybe satisfy different a bigger variety of couples and how they see it. So Esther Perel, for example, has a more, say, modern, open-minded way of approaching relationships. It can also maybe encourage adding more people in the relationship or things like that. And then, say, there's Gottman that supports sort of a more monogamous relationship, but in a healthy way, and gives better approaches to communicate in a better way and how to be with each other and for a sort of long-term partnership. I would say these are useful. And then just a great book. I don't know how related it is to maybe the limitations, but to the topics that we talked about. But I think it's a really amazing book. It's one that's called Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. And then there's a second one that's called Come Together. And so Come As You Are is more focused on female sexuality. But for heterosexual couples, I also feel like all men could read it because it would give them a lot of information and a lot of understanding. And a lot of the topics that come up are just for humans in general, not necessarily as to a specific gender. But I think she has a great way of explaining things and the concepts that she sort of promotes and shares. And then Come Together is a book that talks about sexuality and long-term relationships and how to maintain that. I think maybe these are some of the better recommendations, I would say, that are priority for me.
Thank you so much for the recommendations.
You're welcome.
And for your time today.
Thank you
Hope
so
to
much.
see you again.
Me too.